Hello everybody, welcome to my latest video. This one's going to be about the Trial of Archery quest. Now, this is actually a follow-on to a quest that you find in the main opening city. There is basically an elven warrior, I say warrior, he's an archer, an elven archer who's standing next to the armourer, looking at all the bows that are available. He's having trouble. Basically cannot shoot an arrow, even though he's an elf, and of course that's not acceptable for his culture. So he's looking to try and find out why, and he's looking at the designs. Now, it is part of a quest, and you can start the quest basically by buying the bow for him, because he indicates that he won't buy a bow because it's not the done thing. But if you buy a bow for him, it starts a small quest where you have to basically go and show him how the bow works, and he picks it up quickly. I'm not going to show you that part simply because you go to where the icon on the map is, and you shoot a couple of targets. That's literally all it is. What happens afterwards is, after a while, he shows back up in the town. And once he shows up, he basically says that he's about to go and start his actual trial. So they have to do a trial in the elven culture to make them a man, basically. It's their coming of age trial. And it's an archery trial. And he's never been able to pass it. So he basically says, would you go along, because you've helped him and he can now shoot properly. So he wants you to go along. This is the second part of that, so I'm on my way to the trial. Obviously, it's quite a way away. I wanted to do this walkthrough because there's a couple of places that it's actually relatively difficult to find, especially if you don't know where you're going. But as with most things in Dragon's Dogma 2, the map icons are actually quite easy to follow. There are some little switchbacks that you have to do, but to be perfectly honest, it's not as bad as some other games where they just give you a mark on a compass. Looking at you, Skyrim. Okay, there's obviously a lot of things going on. Unfortunately, I did change my vocation and I made myself a warrior rather than a fighter, and I do really regret it, so I will be swapping that back. Unfortunately, you can only swap your vocation in towns at the vocation guild, so I'm kind of stuck with warrior until I get back, unfortunately. But it's yeah, I don't know, I usually like heavy weapons, but in this game it's very much like Monster Hunter, where it's overly slow, and I mean to the point where if you have to take that much time to swing a sword, then maybe you shouldn't be using the sword. I have struggled quite a lot with it, constantly mistiming things. You can't just attack as normal, you have to kind of think about it and work out when you need to press the button so that you're actually going to connect, because they're jumping out the way before your sword swings. It's not good. Obviously it's me, because I know there are a lot of people out there who do play as the warrior and play very successfully as the warrior. It's just my play style in this game specifically. So definitely sword and board appears to be more my forte here. I actually did like playing the archer, so one thing that I did forget to mention is when you do the first part of this quest and you're showing him how to use a bow, you obviously have to be an archer to be able to equip and use a bow, so you have to change your vocation for that. It only costs 100 gold, I think. 100 gold to buy the new vocation, and that gets you the equipment as well, so you basically get a bow and then the gear that you need to wear, so your pants and your shirt in effect. But you do have to then go and use your new archer vocation to do that part of the quest. So I have got the archer vocation as well, and I did quite enjoy it. It was actually not as bad as some other games that I've experienced. There are some things again that you have to consider, which were unexpected, I suppose. So I was expecting to be able to aim my bow with the L2 button, but of course that just puts your weapon away. So the only way that you can do it is to, I think it's R1, which is the main thing, but again it's kind of like your normal attack buttons, which is a little bit strange, and there's no way that I could find of zooming in. So, but other than that, it was actually quite good fun. So if I do want to do another vocation in the future, until I've locked the hybrid vocations, of course, because there are some hybrid vocations in this, and I'm sure one of them will be some form of sword and shield wielding magic user, possibly a paladin or something along those lines. I don't know, I haven't really looked into it personally, but hopefully I'll be able to unlock those in the future, and when I do, it might be when you get to maximum vocation level, I'm not sure. Maybe in 2 different disciplines. I'll look into it and I'll probably do a video in the future when I find out. But yeah, I might switch to the archer as my second vocation and see what that does. Right, I'm getting close to where I'm supposed to meet the guy. It's literally just up on top of this area here. There was a bit of a campfire to the right, and that's where he is. So if I go up here and up this angled log,
follow me, if you would.
There he is, and he's waiting for some assistance. Yeah, there's no chance I'm going to fall behind. So yeah, there's quite a long walk ahead, so I'm going to skip ahead to when we arrive where we need to go. Mainly because you just follow him, so it's not like I have to show you where to go. So yeah, I will skip ahead. Right, okay, so we've just reached the Arbor. The Arbor is basically the elven home area. And, as you would expect, can't understand a thing they're saying. So, they're speaking Elven, or Elvish, or however you want to pronounce it. But basically, I think they're saying, what the hell are you doing here? And who are these with you? So just skipping over that bit. Doesn't last overly long, to be fair, so there's nothing really to worry about. But it does last long enough. Right, so now we've gained access.
From this moment forth, so long as you remain by my side, I shall
just reading what's going on.
now come.
There we go. So let's go to the place that we're going to see this trial.
I'll gather this. It might be of use.
So the Arbor is very different to anything else that you see within these games. I'm trying to remember, but I can't remember whether there were different races in the first game. I'm sure everyone was just human. But like I say, I can't actually remember, so it's a bit of an odd one. The fact that you can play Beastren and Elves in this. There's probably a load of different races that I didn't even notice during the character creation, so that's going to be something to think about. I might actually look at that as well. I think the character creator still works, so I might just go back through that and see whether there is anything for different races, which, if I've missed that, then that's a huge oversight, so I do apologise. So the interesting thing is that this guy is actually Glyndwr's father, as you can see. So, can't stand idly by while my sister is in peril. Now, if you have watched my previous videos, and you watched my first mission stroke quest walkthrough, you will remember I said that some of them are timed. Now, unfortunately, the game never tells you which ones are timed. So I have done the wolf one. I think it's Pray for the Pack. Pray for the Pack's timed, and I knew that one was because I'd seen it somewhere. Because if you think about a child getting pulled away by a pack of wolves, the chances are he's not going to last very long. So it does make sense that in reality you do need to rush. Now this one, there's an elven girl that's been taken by an ogre. Now to me that sounds a very similar situation. If a young girl has been carried off by an ogre, I don't think she's going to last very long. So in my opinion, if you get to this stage, you should really go and do this quest before any other. So even if you were considering, oh, I just want to do this nice easy, watch him do some archery, if you get to that stage and this quest comes up and you think, oh, I've got a different quest that I want to do, just be aware that because this is quite a sensitive, being carried off by a huge creature, the chances are she will die while you're waiting or while you're doing something else. So with anything along these lines, try and do it as quickly as you possibly can, just so that you don't fall into the trap of the person dies and you don't get your full reward. So, as you can see, they have sent a number of elves into there, and most of them have come out injured. Now, bearing in mind, Glyndwr is actually not a full elven archer because he's not passed his trial. He's actually been told to keep away because they don't think his skill is enough, bearing in mind all of those proven archers have been severely injured. Now, just going back to what I was saying before about this vocation, you can see that I am really struggling. I can't time it properly, so I'm getting hit all the time, and by the time I get halfway through a swing, I'm then being hit multiple times. I know I was getting hit by wolves while I was using my fighter vocation with sword and shield, but I'd got hit a lot less frequently. The benefit of the two-handed weapon is obviously its stopping power. It's much more powerful, but at the same time, I think from a DPS perspective, it's probably the same amount of damage per second, to be fair. So definitely a much slower and I would say more thought out vocation, because you do have to think what you're doing. You can't just go swinging blindly. You just haven't got the speed to do that. And you can see there's Ulrich, one of the pawns that I've hired, who is a fighter, and he's just literally going straight through everything and leaving me in his dust, so I will definitely be swapping back. Okay, there's obviously a lot of things going on in here, but always open chests.
Trade. Allow me to open your chest.
Nope. So unfortunately, it's actually quite difficult to work out where you're supposed to go when you're not following someone, so that's one of the reasons that I like to do these walkthroughs, not just because it helps people to understand which missions are potentially time sensitive, but also so that you can see the mistakes that I make, so you can just go straight there. Now, when I did this, I did get there in time, so even if you do get to this stage and you're trying to work out where to go and then you watch this video, as long as you haven't spent too long looking for videos and then got to this stage, you should be okay. But like I said before, I think in reality they have a certain time limit to them. Now I'm pretty certain Pray for the Pack's probably around 20 minutes, but I think this one might be slightly longer, because I'm sure in fact, no, it probably isn't. It probably is the same sort of time frame, because it'll only start when you're told that she's been kidnapped. Okay, I've leveled up to 23. Bring it on. Right, we are getting close. Here we go.
Arborheart, preserve me. 'Tis e'en more nightmarish a sight than I had feared, but there is still hope, if I act quickly. Listen well.
Right, it's in the distance.
The moment the ogre releases-
Now I did do something quite incorrect with this. I was pressing the wrong button, and
the trial of archery.
unfortunately the task that I've been given is to pick his sister up after the ogre drops her. So there you go, she's been dropped, so my job is to run in there and go and
Must carry Miss Derren.
pick her up. But I kind of just wander around and sit there ineffective. So there she is right there, and I'm just like, right, not quite sure. So I thought it was R2 to pick up, but I just couldn't seem to remember how to do it. And I was wondering whether it was actually the fact that she was on the floor, because there you go, he's now picked her up, and I thought at this stage, oh no, that's it, I've ruined the mission, because the ogre then runs away, and I'm thinking I need to get there quickly. I actually did get there as quick as possible, and maybe that did change the outcome, but I was really concerned that, I mean, it's actually licking her head. I mean, that's quite disgusting. Seems to be a lot more focused on her than anything else. There you go, he's dropped her again. So I thought, I need to get her out of here. There you go, I managed to pick her up that time. So I don't know whether it was just something I was doing wrong, but then I fell down that little incline, and this caused me a whole heap of trouble, because every time I picked her up I slipped and it dropped her. So when you do get to this stage, try and go down the path, because if you do this, it's going to cause you some big issues, the same as it did for me. So now I'm on flat ground, I can actually try and get away. Unfortunately, you can't go very fast when you're carrying another person, and I do have an ogre, because I'm carrying her, and ogres love the female of the species. He's just following me absolutely everywhere, and unfortunately there's not really much I can do about it. So it's one of those things. Now, because she's now on the floor and we are quite severe, I don't like the fact all of those arrows are sticking right out of his backside. That just looks completely wrong. Oh, that pushed them right in there. Jesus. Okay. Enough on looking at arrows stuck in his backside. That's quite... it's horrendous. But anyway, you can see that he's not going to last much longer, and he's not anywhere near her at the moment. So we should, in theory, be alright. And he's grabbed me instead, which is fine. There we go. So my task was to get her out of there. So I picked her up and carried her the rest of the way. I'm pretty certain I had to do this, because at no point did either of the other two elves try and talk to me. And obviously the quest can't be completed until I get spoken to. Now, it was interesting because I carried her all the way out, but as soon as I got outside, even before I'd put her down, I could tell that they were going to talk to me. So I do believe you do have to carry her all the way out. So I will walk all the way out so you can see the path that was taken. I'm not too far away now, so it shouldn't take too much longer. Overall though, I do actually like... I don't think there's one single quest that I've actually disliked in this game so far. Some of them could be quite hard to find, to be fair, because they're not overly clear, and some of them, as I've mentioned before, do kind of just hit you as you're walking around. Like this one, I didn't have to go and speak to anyone to start this part of the quest. All I had to do was walk into an area and it automatically started, so you do have to be careful for those. But other than that, you kind of just have to pay attention to anyone who might want to speak to you, so that they might give you a quest because of it. Now this is the ending of the quest. I originally thought that he was going to get in trouble because the bow's not elven make, but then he's conceal it not, I do not disapprove, which is quite... Well, he thought he was going to get punished for it because it's not an arbor bow, as they would call them. But his father actually seems to be quite open to change. In fact, he seems to relish it, in effect. The fact that his son has managed to get extremely good at archery, even using a different bow. And yeah, I actually thought this was quite a nice ending to the quest. Now, one thing that I would say is, after Glyndwr approaches you, do make sure that you go and talk to his father. I know he does say, if you're passionate about mastery of the bow, perhaps you might speak with my father. Don't just think, I'm not going to be an archer, so I'm not going to speak to him, because if you go and speak to him, he is the one who gives you your quest rewards. Oh, it does actually say that you do actually have to speak to him anyway to complete the quest. But I was thinking initially that, well, I'm not going to be an archer. Actually, I will go and speak to him to see what he says. So it's definitely worth it. But there we go. You'll see pop up on screen the stuff that you get. But thanks very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed it, please make sure you do click the like button. Subscribe if you're new, and I look forward to seeing you for my next video very soon. You'll take care. Bye for now.